What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. Hope everybody is well. Man, beautiful day today. Enjoying this one. It's always good when I have my brother in the house, and I'm not going to take too long to introduce him and get into this. Well, I really need to introduce. He needs no introduction at this point, but nevertheless, shout out to the listeners out there. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will. You can also do so. You can do so through, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Patreon. Of course, you can become a member on YouTube. Various levels of membership perks, depending on which level you choose. And of course, if you go to Patreon, you can support the Onyx Report. You can support the Institute for Black Male Studies. You can support the Onyx Network, which you can find on Amazon Fire TV, Roku, Android, and iPhone. You can support all of that together or singularly. So please make sure you support so we can continue to develop and grow and bring things to you. Shout out to some of you who are already here. Chef Mike, Chef Mike's Roundtable. Shout out to that good brother sitting with the wife, listening in. Shout out to you. Hope you well. Barry, what's good? Guy in the black suit, what's up? Got a few people in here already. War Child Games, what's going on? All right, Valerian here. Ken. Orange Peel Nurse says making crab cakes. Listening in. That's what's up. Yeah. Afro National. What's good? Dr. Manhattan. Good to see you brothers in here. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the 14-point Black male political agenda because we've had a few additions to it that I've updated. I think as of yesterday. As of yesterday. Shout out to Queen Khalil. Electrician 480, what's up? No one. Spain Man, what's going on? Dr. Manhattan. Yeah. So we had a couple new contributions to some of the sub areas. Right? Let me see. There we go. And be having stuff in the beard now. Anyway, but I thought that we would actually bring in the good brother since he had a moment. He's got to do a show tonight, so we're not going to be on here long. But I wanted him to talk a little bit about some of the things he's contributed to the list so you guys can be better informed as to what's on there. Now, remember, as of now, this list is really an open use kind of sort of database on Black male thought for y'all. And what we decide to do with it is what we decide to do with it. That's what I'm opening this to. But for right now, we are at elementary level gathering information. What is it that Black men want policy wise? Because I've never seen it. I've never seen it listed out. And so that's the stage we're in this process of looking at Black male political mobilization. But before we mobilize, we got to know what we choose to mobilize for rather than what other people want us to mobilize for. So let me go ahead and bring in the good brother, Attorney Dennis Spurling. There he is. Right. What's good, man?
Hey, what's up, Doc? Always good to be here with you, man. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And it's always, it's an honor to be here. And I thank you so much for inviting me back.
Oh, no, I appreciate you, man. You've been bringing in heavy hitters lately, too, on the channel. You tell some of the people about the channel who you've been bringing in, man, because you dropping fire.
Yeah. I had an opportunity to bring Judge Joe Brown in a couple of times. And, it's always good to have him in because he's a true elder. A lot of the young brothers like to call me an elder, but the truth is Uncle D's still out in them streets a little bit, even though I'm with my fiance. So I'm saying, so I have not quite got to the point that I'm an elder yet. So when I get a chance to get a true elder in, that's awesome. In addition, I had the honor and pleasure of having Dr. Gerald Horn come into the space here. And he's made his rounds. This man not only has a PhD, but also a JD
Mm.
And so, you know, being able to talk to him about some of these ideas, because I brought up our 14-point black male political agenda, and one more that I'm working on, and I want to get it in a cohesive state to kind of add on related to reparations. But yeah, those are just a couple of people, man, and it's good to have people who carry weight like yourself. You're from the academy, you have those accomplishments, so people will come in to your chat, to your platform, where they wouldn't otherwise. Being an attorney, having practiced law for 22 years now, going on 23, coming from a family of people who practice law or involved in law enforcement, you know, people say, yeah, I'll go talk to Dennis. And what that does is it provides an opportunity for you all to hear these people speak directly to you. And I'm not talking about you, Prof. I'm talking about these folks right here who would not otherwise ever meet a Joe Brown, or who would not otherwise ever meet a Dr. Horn, because you just don't fall in their spaces, and they may not feel comfortable coming onto your platform. So, you know, so that's kind of how that goes.
All right. Well, let's jump right in, man, because you broke some of this down to me, and I was really glad that you were willing to put in the time and write it down, because I know how busy you are. So let me go ahead and pull up the first part of what you sent to me, and let me enlarge it a bit.
Oh yeah, please do, man. I might need to get some stronger glasses.
I'll read it aloud for everybody, because we got people on sort of online radio anyway. But anyway, so the first thing you submitted was, in addition to the family law reform section, and you wrote to amend Title 4D of the Social Security Administration Code, granting states matching funds up to 66% of what they recover from persons who have committed paternity fraud and collected child support and arrears and other state and federal benefits. Talk a little bit about, you know, what brought that up, why that's important.
Okay, so basically, when we're talking about title, first of all, in 1975, the Social Security Administration Code was amended to incentivize states to go out and collect child support. And I may have worded it wrong because I was using my thumbs and it was probably 12 o'clock at night. But basically, it pays the attorney generals of the individual states salaries up to 60%. So let's say you made $10,000 this month. Or you paid your employees $10,000 this month. You're the attorney general of the state of California. You got a group of employees. You gave them $10,000, and with that $10,000 worth of manpower, woman power, they dedicated that $10,000 to enforcement of child support, establishing orders, enforcement efforts, tracking people down. What the federal government will do is say, okay, we'll give you $6,666.66 back. You see? So basically they're incentivizing these attorneys because they're basically, hey, that's a bonus check for you. You're operating at what, a third of what you would normally be operating. Now the truth is they may be billing for child support, but they're doing a whole lot of other stuff on that too. So they're making money. They're collecting fees. Each individual state said, well, you got to pay this fee. Yeah, we know you owe your baby mama, but you also got to pay the state. So they throw other fees in there to bolster it. But what it does is it incentivizes these states to go after people who don't pay child support by paying them a salary. Basically, they put a bounty on your head to go after you. And that's why you got this machine working. That's why the people who are in the black robes and the people who are on the other side of the courtroom, they're all in it together, because it brings money into the state, which is why it's nearly impossible to get this stuff amended, to reform child support, because anything you do to the system may take away from their ability to keep getting money being brought in, free money from the federal government.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And look, those of you in the chat, if you have questions to extend, we don't have a lot of time, so I probably won't bring you up, but I will, I'll ask the questions if we have the time to do so. So keep that in mind as we continue. The second thing you added was mandatory DNA testing prior to the granting of child support orders. Now, we have mandatory DNA testing as one of the proposals on the list, but you added, prior to the granting of child support orders. Talk a little bit about that one. And have you seen that in your practice? Where, what do you notice about that?
All right. So one thing I want to hit on before we go on to that second point.
Okay.
If you look at that first point, the part where it says persons who have committed paternity fraud and collected child support in arrears and other state and federal benefits. So and that's the language, right? That's the fine print right there.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm proposing is that we amend the Social Security Administrative Code and say, not only are we going to incentivize you going after these deadbeat dads, these deadbeat persons who don't pay their child support, but we're also going to incentivize you collecting money from individuals, right? Lovely ladies, more likely than not, who commit paternity fraud.
Yes.
And who collect state and federal benefits. That means Medicaid and Medicare. Because see, there's $10 billion worth of child support owed, but the vast majority of that is from Medicaid and Medicare. These women, they go out, they write, hey, yeah, this is my baby daddy over here. He doesn't even know about it. Next thing he knows, he owes $3,000 or $4,000 for some child that was or wasn't his. We don't know. There's not been a DNA test, but because she says it's his, you owe it. You didn't answer the lawsuit. Now you're paying for medical treatment for a kid that you didn't know. You might even have had insurance. So what do? We incentivize that same watchdog to go after these ladies for committing paternity fraud. These ladies for committing paternity fraud and receiving not only child support, but also federal and state benefits, i.e. Social Security, Medicaid, WIC, etc., and make them go after them. So everything you can recover, dear Attorney General, everything we get it. You want to go after the deadbeat dads, but now you've incentivized the local and state legislators to enact laws that make it a crime to commit paternity fraud.
Right.
Because now, you know what? We're going to get some money from this.
Okay.
See, because you're not going to convince them to stop going after guys who haven't paid their child support because they get money from that. But how do we what's the real problem? The real problem is paternity fraud. The real problem is forcing guys to pay for kids that aren't theirs via the state. So now what we're going to do is we're going to end that 30% of men who are paying for children outside of wedlock by saying, not only can you now prove that you're not the father, but you get all the money back that you spent on this kid, and this woman has to pay for it. And the reason, and we as the federal government are going to say, well, okay, hell, we'll take 66% of everything we recover. I mean, via paying, reimbursing us for the time and money we spent. We'll take six. And so now you got to work in both ways. You see how that ends the problem?
Do you think that'll have an impact on women's behavior in terms of that, or do you think it'll continue?
I think
enacted.
I think once the word gets around that you will go to jail, you will have if you commit paternity fraud, you just put some man's name on a piece of paper saying he's the daddy, and you start collecting child support.
Right.
I think what's going to happen is when women start saying, damn, they garnishing my check. Damn, they putting me in jail. Damn, they doing all that. That's going to end that really quickly. That's what's going to happen. The paternity fraud can land. When paternity fraud can garnish your check or land you in jail, and the state is the engine behind it, pushing it because they're getting paid, it's going to make them think twice, three times. The word will get around very quickly.
Wow. Yeah. So just if you're just coming in, obviously I have attorney Dennis Spurling breaking down some of his latest contributions to the 14-point black male political agenda. And just so you're clear, when you see in the red type, these weird combination of numbers and letters, that's specifically where I added his suggestions to the list. So in family law reform, which is the first of the 14 points, 1A is you have some of the language from his suggestion, 1K5 and 1M. That's where you can find that. It's already there. I will post the link in the chat and in the description box again, but let's continue. So for the third, go ahead.
No. So it's 60, it's up to 66%. of the salaries of the people. Basically, they're not getting 66% of the child support they recover. They're getting 66% of what it costs these lawyers and individuals who work to recover. So you're getting $1,000 a month for this. They'll reimburse you. They'll give you $666.66 for the time you spent for your work hours, basically. So that's not the actual money they recover, but the money, the work hours you spend on it. They'll reimburse you 2/3 of that. So that, just to clarify, so maybe clarify that on your 14-point plan, so it'll be clear.
Okay. Yeah. So let me see. Greg Wilson asks, but the states have to enforce it. Will they put a mother in jail who has a child at home over false paternity? What do you think?
And see, the answer is the law says they're supposed to. The law says they're supposed to. Oklahoma enforces makes more women pay for not paying they got more deadbeat moms up there paying child support than any other state that I know of. So it can be done. It has to be done. This is how the machine works. Once you create this machine, it has to eat. And once you create, this is how the government works. I'm never going to convince these attorney generals to stop collecting child support. No matter what you do, they're not going to. You're paying people's salaries. That's people's pensions. All you can do is feed that animal. If you see your enemy feeding the dog, you feed the dog too. And now that dog is going to attack your enemy too, or your adversary. So that's what we're doing. We're saying, okay, if you want to collect money against guys who didn't pay their child support, well, we also want you to collect the money from women who have been found to committed fraud, paternity fraud. And we'll give you 66% of the money you spend trying to recover. We'll reimburse that. That's a simple administration. What does the government care? They're getting it from an individual anyway. You getting you get her $150 every 2 weeks. Bam. Okay, we'll give you, how much did it cost you to do that? $10. We'll give you $6 for every time you do that. Right. And now multiply that time the millions of women that commit paternity fraud in this country. And now you created a machine that has to be fed. So that's where we are. So I do believe eventually there's going to be some district attorneys saying, hey, we need money. What's another way we can get resources? We can start collecting against these mothers over here who committed paternity fraud. What that's going to do is the legislature is going to look at that and say, well, let's create some laws to make paternity fraud illegal or a felony. That's all they're going to do.
Yeah. But real quick question, and shout out to Wrench Turner. Keep puffing that cigar, good brother. Dardar, we're going to get to his comment in a quick second, but do you think that these are the kinds of ideas that would bring Black men back into the voting booth, most particularly brothers who have kind of just abstained from participating politically altogether? Do you think these are the kind of ideas that'll bring those brothers back in and make them want to?
I think it's in Black men's interest. And if you vote your interest, this would be something that's in your interest. And that's it. Some people are just so disappointed at the voting system, the electorate and how things go. You might never get them to vote. But men who are looking and saying, oh, they're going to make paternity fraud illegal? Oh, hell yeah. You got to let there be a politician who states, I'm going to stand on making paternity fraud illegal. If you're paying child support for children that aren't yours, that is wrong. We need the legislator to put something in place to make sure that those women who do that are held responsible. There's no way you should be paying for a child that's not yours, period.
You know what? No, that is the kind of policy that will wake the sleeping giant.
Right.
It will wake the sleeping giant across race.
It will.
Absolutely do so. Dardar adds to this, says, make sure 50-50 custody is enforced by law. Some of these mothers will refuse to give the children to the fathers when it's his time to have them. All right. So number 3, you put in here the presumption of law that 50-50 custody is in the best interest of the child or children. Talk to us about presumption of law and why that's important.
Okay, so a presumption of law is something that is, and we skip number 2, but I guess we'll go back to that in a minute. The presumption of law is something that is there's something called a motion for summary judgment. I'll use this for example. In a motion for summary judgment, there's a presumption that goes against the non-mover, that what they say is true. You see, the mover has the burden to prove that that there's no genuine issue of material fact. And so there's a presumption there. Dr. T. Hasan Johnson filed a lawsuit against Joe Blow. Joe Blow files a motion for summary judgment saying the sky is red. If the presumption is that the sky is not red, but you still have an obligation to go in and prove that it is. There's a presumption. See how ridiculous that is?
Okay.
The presumption here, and I believe there's I forget the name of the actual study, but there's a presumption that women make better parents. I forget what that's called. There's a presumption that women are the better parents, especially when the children are young. That is a presumption that's in the law. If you look carefully into all the different statutes around the country related to state law, the presumption is that the women are better parents. We need to remove that presumption and put in the presumption that 50-50 custody is in the best interest of the children. That's where the presumption should be. Not that the woman is the better parent. And oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. I was thinking about it. I forget about it. Is it? Oh my God. I can't believe I forgot that.
If you're anything like me, you'll remember as soon as you leave.
Right.
But okay, so let's step back a little. You said we missed number 2, mandatory DNA testing prior to the granting of child support orders.
Right. So here's the thing. You guys are suckers. I'm a sucker too. You see that pretty baby in the hospital, right? And then, okay, don't you want your baby to have a father? Here, sign this piece of paper. And now you're the father. Okay. So you break up with your girlfriend and she's got that baby. She doesn't have to do anything else to put you on child support because that birth certificate says it all. But if there's a stopgap measure that says, yeah, we get the paperwork, but we want to know who this child actually belongs to.
Right.
So let's do mandatory DNA testing prior to granting child support orders. I think that is also in the best interest of the child because, see, these children grow up. These children grow up, and when they realize that their parents lied to them or their mother lied to them, that creates instability in the social fabric. I know there are many guys right here who are on this page who can tell you, I've seen it. I've seen what happens when kids grow up and they realize that their mother lied to them about who their dad was. And that's a big lie that you can't get over. So it's in the best interest of the children. This is another presumption almost that knowing who their father is, knowing who their biological father is in their best interest. So it should be mandatory. And so these are the things, these presumptions, and this can be worked out through case law or legislation, because this is something family law is left to the individual state. So that's my thoughts on that.
Okay. Shout out to Roaring Sun, who caught me off guard with this one. He said, point 15 to the agenda, mandatory issuance of passports to every black man on his 18th birthday instead of selective service application. You want to talk about the baby boomer? There'd be a baby boom all over the world from black men. Anyway, back to it. So we can jump into number 4. Right? Child support only available where 50-50 custody has not been awarded.
Okay. So here's the thing. We're back to that presumption. We presume that 50-50 custody is in the best interest of the children. Okay. Now, what does that do? Well, first of all, it makes sure things are fair. That sounds fair to me. Under the 4th Amendment and the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, you shouldn't treat people differently because of their race, their ethnicity, or their sex, and a few other things that are their immutable characteristics. So why is it that we presume that the mother is the better parent? That sounds to me on its face like it's a sexist law. That's what it sounds to me. And the 4th and the 14th Amendment protect people against that. So there should be a presumption that 50-50 custody should be awarded. Now, in a situation where one parent is wholly unworthy, one parent is just a terrible parent, I get it. I understand why you would say, well, nah, you're going to get the child on the weekends. Matter of fact, you only going to be able to see this child. Let's say the woman's a crackhead or a meth head. She should only be able to see her children on the weekends or maybe supervised visit as opposed to 50-50 custody. So those are the presumptions that I want in the law. These are things that can be dealt with legislatively. Now, what are you going to run across? Okay. The problem is judges, right? They need something to do. They want to keep their black robes, those brand new courthouses they're building around the country. A large percentage of the money they earn comes from the collection of child support. Now, we talked earlier about the state.
Okay.
You gotta recognize this machine, this monster needs to eat. So if you put all these together and you say, we'll give a little here, we'll take a little over there, fine. Other than that, you're gonna have to strong arm these politicians. You're gonna have 30, 40, 50 people outside of their audience, outside of their offices saying, hey, you see this right there? You know, we want 50-50 custody. Are you for it or against it?
Right.
So you're against fathers being with their children. That's what you're saying. And you got to make a big stink about it. And you got to call their donors. You got to call these people, these pro-lifers, these people who love family. Of course, they should be on the side of having fathers involved in their children's lives. And if these people are objecting to fathers being involved in their children's lives via 50-50 custody, just because they want to keep the the constituents, the immunists happy, that means they got to go. You got to put that strong arm on them, but you also give them a financial incentive to go with. So look, you come over here, it's the plato o plomo. You know what I'm saying? It's the stick or the carrot. We're gonna give you money, and we're gonna be nice to you. And if you don't do what we say, we're gonna make sure you don't get reelected for anything again. You're not gonna be a dog catcher in this town, because we're gonna talk to all your people that donate money to you. All right, and we're gonna say this person is not for family values, and we're not gonna vote for you, and we're gonna hit you over the head on social media and tell people how you're anti-father in this country. And so that's this plato plumo, just like Pablo Escobar, or the carrot or the stick.
Yeah, that mafia approach. We're gonna either pay you or hurt you in one way or another.
But that's politics, you know. I mean, you can win. It's time to change the course, you know. In my opinion,
Let's go to the second part of what
is it called the Duluth model? The Duluth model.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? That's what I was trying to get at. The Duluth model says that women are better parents. I think that's it, right?
The Duluth model is primarily used in psychology, where the presupposition is that men operate off of patriarchy, and patriarchy is, of course, the primary thing that oppresses women. But
here it is.
We're referring to the tender years
doctrine. Yeah, I do something like, I heard you guys talk about that before. It's the tender years doctrine. That's exactly
that's where we actually saw, because there was a point in time, particularly in Europe, where men got custody. And so this idea that people have, that it's always been natural that women get custody, people don't understand that's not necessarily the case. There was a particular moment when there's a political shift, and I want people to understand this is what undergirds our political conversations. See, one of the things I hear from brothers is, we can't change nothing. You know, y'all are just whatever. Why are you even bothering? When it comes to politics and really anything else in life, things change. But they change at an opportune moment, most particularly when people are able to apply the proper amount of leverage in a given situation to change the dynamic. But in order to change the dynamic, you first got to know what your interests are. And Black men have never established what our particular interests are. So that's the first step. But then the second step after that is to begin to mobilize and identify points of weakness where we can use leverage to press our advantage. And so, at different points in time, we got to keep in mind that some of the things we thought would never change absolutely do. And so you just need to be in an opportune position to push and leverage your interest in order to make things lean your way. But this idea that nothing can change politically, shit changes all the time, So that said,
and there's actually been case law, and I just put a statute in your chat room. It won't let me. I'll put it in the private chat, but that says that the tender years doctrine is violative of the 4th and the 14th Amendment. So there's already case law out there, and I just Wikipedia'd it, so it's there already. We just have to act on it.
Okay, I'll go ahead and put it in the chat. And while I do that, Let's talk a little bit about the second section you sent. Now, this one went into police enforcement / criminal law reform,
Right.
and it serves as 6I and 6J in the list. I already put the link to the agenda in the chat. Let me know if you want me to do it again. The first one you submitted was enactment of legislation abating the U.S. Supreme Court case Terry versus Ohio 392 U.S. 1 1968, which is a violation of the 4th and 14th Amendment and the line of cases that flow from Terry ID. So can you talk a little bit about that?
All right. So I've been having an ongoing yelling match with a friend of mine. His name is Delete Laws. Okay. So he's not a lawyer. Guy is, he's one of those folks that follows around cops and makes sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. He's a layman. He's a regular guy who had a bad experience with police. Basically, they got him at a no-knock warrant. It was a horrible situation for him, and it drove him to want to study the law. And so, after him yelling and screaming these things over the past year, I'm like, he's right. To a certain degree, he's right. Now, maybe his interpretation of the law doesn't fall in line with most judges or most appellate courts or even the Supreme Court. He does have some very, very valid points. So here's the thing we have to understand. Terry versus Ohio. This was a case back in, I believe it was Halloween Day back in Ohio. Some guys were walking down the street and a cop looked across the street and saw them. Basically, this is a different time period. We're just coming out of segregation. White cop sees some black guy walking down the street, says he sees him looking inside of a window of a store, decides to go over and pat him down, finds a weapon on him. Now, the thing is, and says, oh, yeah, they were planning to commit a crime. He hadn't committed any crime at that time. He was just a guy walking down the street and happened to look in the window. What he did was he profiled this man. Okay. But their lawyer said, hey, this is not acceptable. This is fruits of a poisonous tree. This is, you can't just go stop somebody just because you think they're doing something. You got to have probable cause to do that. Yes. Right. So law enforcement, what Terry does is it gives law, and the Supreme Court agreed with him, which was like, oh my God, this opens the door for horrible things. Law enforcement under a Terry stop may initiate what is called a Terry stop. If he or she suspects that an individual is committing, has committed, or is about to commit a crime, but probable cause does not yet exist to arrest. And the officer wants to stop the suspect and investigate. Now, what is probable cause? And I'm not going to give you all a legal lesson. I'm just running through some things and you'll get it. Courts usually find probable cause. The question is, what is probable cause? When there's a reasonable basis for believing that a crime may have been committed for an arrest or evidence of a crime is present in the place to be searched for or to be searched. So what that basically is saying, probable cause is somebody committed a crime. Probable cause is I got evidence. Somebody said I saw this guy throw a rock and break in this car. That's probable cause. You got probable cause to go arrest him. A Terry stop doesn't even require that. All you need to do is just believe.
Right.
Like, believe her. Just believe her. And you can go up and stop somebody, harass them, and check them and for whatnot. And see, what we need to do is come up with legislation to say, no, you don't get a chance to rely on your individual subjective belief as to whether or not you believe somebody committed a crime. Because see, here's the thing, Dr. T. Hasan Johnson, and you know this as much as I do. A lot of people believe based on their prejudices. Right. A lot of people believe what they see on TV. If you believe that this group of individuals are prone to violence and prone to commit crime because there's been decades and centuries of media and crosstalk and family conversations telling you that these people commit crimes more than everybody else, then you may be subject to believe that they committed a crime even when they haven't, and more so than someone else who is not of that group. And so that's why we need to eliminate that. If you haven't seen them committed a crime, if you don't have evidence they committed a crime, then you don't have probable cause. then the Terry stop is is not necessary. Now, these other things that flow from Terry, the pulling you over in your car, all these other things like that, all that flows from Terry.
Right.
Unless you actually believe somebody committed a crime, you don't have permission to pull them over and stop them and pull them out the car and pat them down and put them in handcuffs. You basically, what you're doing by eliminating Terry and that avenue is you're eliminating police interaction.
Yeah.
See, by the time you get to qualified immunity, not only have you had police interaction, the door was already open. Terry opens the door for a large percentage of the police interaction. Qualified immunity says, oh, well, we're going to punish you for something you did that was illegal as a law officer. But hell, what's illegal as a law officer? That's subject. Let's just stop the interaction. Let's just stop their ability to walk up on you and pat you down because they believe that you've done something or you might do something. You see, that is the difference between amending Terry versus Ohio versus qualified immunity, which is way down the road somewhere after the harm has been done. Now you're trying to figure out how much money you get. Terry versus Ohio helps you stay alive. A qualified immunity makes sure your family gets paid. No, we want you alive. That's the difference. It's almost like this: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Kind of like that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Next up, number 2. I think this is the last thing you contributed on this particular run. Requiring police officers to take out individual policies of liability insurance to cover intentional and negligent actions while performing their duties as peace officers, thereby holding individual officers personally accountable and limiting the exposure to money judgments the taxpayers must bear.
All right. So this is my favorite one. As you guys know, I'm a personal injury lawyer, and I know the power of an insurance company. So here's the thing. What we've basically done is we've placed a third party who has a financial interest in vetting these police officers before they issue them a policy of insurance. So you got $1 billion State Farm, Allstate, Lord of London, I don't know, Sedgwick, whatever, saying you're not insurable, Mr. Officer, because we looked at your record. You got 50 complaints in this jurisdiction, 20 in that jurisdiction. Your premium is going to be $2,000 a month. So you're uninsurable. And so what does that mean? That means if they can't get an insurance policy, they can't get a job. So you don't have to worry about the cops that are out there on the beat right now. If they're out there on the beat, that means they're insured. We make doctors get medical insurance. We make lawyers, well, we don't make them, but we suggest lawyers get medical insurance. Hell, bricklayers have to have, contractors have to have medical insurance. Why not police officers who walk around with pistols and weapons and training that they can kill people and hurt people? They need to be held accountable for their negligent and intentional actions. So what does that do? It also, because they have their own policy of insurance, that means the taxpayers are no longer forced to pay these $100,000, $1 million judgments because he has his own personal policy that'll cover. So now we don't have to, taxpayers, and this is the part that's going to make it difficult for them to argue. So you got Republicans and you got Democrats, right? The Republicans are always talking about, oh, let's spend less. We don't want big government. Okay, great. I'm glad you feel that way. So we want these cops to start carrying their own policies of insurance. And the better the cop they are, the lower their premium will be. So it works out. You also got the insurance company on your side saying, hell, that sounds like a great idea. We can charge some more people premiums for more stuff. Right. You got the insurance company and the insurance lobby on your side. The Republicans have got to be on your side because you're saving tax dollars. You see what I mean? And the Democrats are on your side because, like, yeah, that works. That we're doing police reform. This is something that's substantive. The people who aren't going to like it, right? The people who aren't going to like it are going to be your police unions and those type of folks. But at the end of the day, oh well, who cares? You fight an insurance company and both political parties. You're going to fold. You're going to accept this. This is what you get. And what you do. And so that's my thoughts on that. And so what I've done with all of these different things is I've allowed you to align with mega deep pocket powerful organizations and entities that
Right.
can say, yeah, well, that's something, there's something in it for us.
Yeah.
You see, so I've, that's what I've done. That's the creative mastery that you have there.
I think one of the things, and this is a smaller point, but I think it kind of checks this as well, is you have police officers that they're just finding out are actively involved in neo-Nazi,
Right.
Klan activity kind of thing. So it's an interesting thing that they have to pay a personal liability insurance to have the job they want, which in turn contradicts why they may have gotten into that line of work in the first place when it comes to wanting to enact, undue violence against particular groups, most especially groups like African American men, Black men. So it's interesting to see how that might in turn grapple with or challenge people who have questionable motivations for wanting to
Right.
get into this line of work, and they have to actually be personally accountable for their behavior.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which there is no check and balance against right about now. So I find it to be a very interesting suggestion as far as that alone. Any thoughts about that kind of thing?
Well, see, the thing is, when you're dealing with insurance companies, they're going to get all in your business. Everything's going to come out. Let's say hypothetically we do, and I guarantee you, there's an insurance company that will write a policy for a cop right now. All we're doing is you got gun insurance. You got for pistol, so there's going to be there's an insurance company out there that will find you a policy that will insure these police officers. Now, again, what you're saying, Doc, is that it's going to make the ones who aren't in it for the right reasons not want to come in because they're going to have to pay an insurance policy. So that's money out of their pocket. They're not just going to issue a gun and a badge and say you can go out here and pop people. You actually have to watch yourself.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
So
it's akin to somebody going through medical school and they really, like somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer, who just really wants to hurt people and do so because he can. Well, if you got to get a license as a doctor, you got to get some type of insurance to cover you. That de-incentivizes people who have questionable motivations.
I think what you said is like, it's the same thing in law school. You weeding them out.
Right.
If you can't deal with that first semester, those law professors cracking down on your butt and hazing the hell out of you, you're like, I'm just here because my mom wanted me to be a lawyer, not because I really wanted to be. And you're gonna leave. So now you got to not only do you got to pay out of the pocket, and on top of that, if you're dealing with an insurance company, they're going to ask you all those tough questions. Where did you work before? How long have you been a lawyer? Have you ever been, not a lawyer. How long have you been a police officer? Have you ever been written up? How many public complaints do you have? Have you ever been demoted? Have you ever been suspended with pay or without pay? So all that information is going to come out there. And so now we know what type of liability you are. So now you got a rating. Okay, so one of the first questions the public will ask when some cop shoots somebody, well, what was his insurance rating? Well, this guy, man, he barely able to get insured. He had a rating of, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. This guy had a scale of 7. Oh my God, we haven't seen anything like that since Rodney King. You know what I mean? Or you're partnered with somebody who's a 7 or an 8. And you're a 2. You're like, I don't want to work with this guy. Okay, because I don't want to be in the car with him. He's going to make my insurance rating go up. So I'm cool on him. So guess what'll happen? Now you get the bad cops being ostracized by the good cops. So now you don't have to ask them to play good cop. You'll know the guy who's out there riding in a patrol car by himself and no one wants to work with him. Then you'll know that's the bad guy. You'll know that guy is not somebody that you want on your team.
No,
so,
absolutely. Even something as basic as car insurance, one of the reasons you want to drive safely is you don't want your premium to go up.
Exactly.
You're going to, as an officer, want to keep that record clean,
right?
For the same kind of reason. Now, Jermont Montgomery raises this here, and I'm going to take off the screen so we can actually see the good brother here. But he says, what about the justice reform policy of abolishment of the 13th Amendment, whereas everyone with a conviction can be rendered to a form of slavery? Black men are unable to vote in many states due to it. What do you think about some type of reform policy in regard to the 13th Amendment? from an attorney, is that what would you say about that?
Okay, so I know that repealing an amendment is very difficult because remember the amendments have to be ratified by each state. Okay. Now, what aspect of the 13th Amendment does he not like? That people can be incarcerated and forced to do labor? I think that people who commit horrible crimes, like we'll say grape and show mowing and these sort of things, they should not have an easy time in prison. I am not some bleeding heart liberal that feels bad for people who commit crimes. That's not me. If you go to prison and you've done something heinous, you shooting and killing people, you out there committing crimes, you need to be punished, period. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to try to protect good black men, good white men, good all men who are being victimized by this criminal justice system and the civil system, period. But that said, if I were to amend the 13th Amendment, what proposal would this gentleman have us amend? In what way?
Okay. So
what part of it do you not like?
Yeah.
Because the 13th Amendment makes slavery, you see what I'm saying, illegal. So I mean, you the first half of this, what are we talking about here?
Except for prisoners, I think he's going with that. I think the idea would be more around, black men who have been falsely incarcerated or incarcerated over nonviolent crimes. Should they have all rights removed as far as that's concerned? But I can't speak for Jermont, so you might need to put more detail. And this is good because these are the kind of questions I need you guys to ask yourself when you make a suggestion for the list. I'm trying to get a couple questions in because Attorney Spurling has to go do his own show, and he's kind enough to pop in here just before that. I really do appreciate that. We had another question from War Child Games who said, what would you propose for a father who wants to keep an unborn child that the mother wants to abort? How could the father exercise his rights? Any thoughts?
Well, Roe v. Wade has been overturned. What state do you live in? Because if you live in the state of Texas, then guess what happens? If she tries to abort that baby, then you can have her indicted on a felony.
Uh-oh.
How about that?
Uh-oh.
So you do have rights now as men because state of Texas and several other states, especially in those flyover states, I believe Louisiana, Alabama, I think the one in Louisiana is still being fought about, but Texas, if you in the state of Texas, if you know if you aid and abet a person in committing a baby deletion, then you could be charged. You can be tried and you have to pay a penalty. I don't know if that extends down to an Uber that takes her to the clinic. What about the person who pays for the plane ticket for her to go to California, New York? That's on the books right now. So yeah, if you know of a person so you let her know, look, if you try to abort this baby, I'm gonna report you to the local district attorney's office, and we gonna put you under the penitentiary. You see what I mean?
You gonna tie in Uber and you gonna tie in sugar daddy. So
I'm gonna pay your mama who gave you the money, the dude that you got that paid you for the abortion, the person that paid you for the plane ticket. That's on the law. That's the law right now in the state of Texas. I don't know where this young woman lives, but that's how I would deal with that. And see, the thing is, I'm not looking at this. Some of you go, oh, Uncle D, that's ruthless. I'm not emotional about it. This is what the law says. You see, like there's some cops out here. There's some cops. I think we saw what's my man? We saw the good police officer in here, Charles Faulkner.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are people he knows that he went to school with. Look, man, the law said I got to put you in these handcuffs. We still cool, but I'm doing my job as an attorney. As an attorney, I'm just telling you this is the current state of the law. Period. And so for many of these women who thought, hey, I'm gonna just have this abortion block, I'm gonna have this baby deletion. Yeah, well, now you can go to jail if you live in the state of Texas. It's not. I'm not emotional about it, And so please forgive my what seems to be my lack of empathy, but I'm just basically a law book that's speaking to you all right now. But other than that, put them in jail, baby. Lock them down. Go ahead.
Well, look, man,
you had that baby in jail, girl. You good?
Oh, damn.
You know what I'm saying? I'll bring her back on visitation. Your little baby milk, because you can pumping in the pen, that little breast milk. I'll send you put that on your books.
You know what?
Protein bars.
He said
You know what I
protein
mean?
bar.
Protein bars, get that nutritious milk. Coming there with your new girlfriend. Yeah, baby, that's my baby mama over there. Baby, come on, this is my new girlfriend. And the little baby calling the new girlfriend mama. Mama. Yup, she be mad. She can't do nothing about it. She can't do, she locked up.
See, this is why we were late getting started. Because
yeah. That's what we do, baby.
y'all think this is raw. It like this. You should talk to him privately. Look, man, I know you got to do your show, man. I got
a couple more minutes, man. I usually push it to 8:30, so I got about another 10, 15 minutes, man. It's a pleasure being here, and the people, this is the work that we should be doing, man. They like seeing us together. It's like having, I don't know, Iron Man and Captain America together or something like that, you know? They like this.
Let me put a couple. So we got another one from Lamar. Says, what are your thoughts on using a voucher system in which the money follows the student to give funds to black male homeschoolers and homeschool co-ops that focus on black boys? Okay, this sounds, I think this was asked yesterday with BGS. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, Doc, you know, I went with one of the worst schools in LA. I'm a graduate of Manual Arts High School in South Central Los Angeles. It was probably one of the worst schools that it was horrible. I had a counselor, her name was Miss Love, bless her heart. I don't even know if she's still alive. Never told me anything about black colleges, you know, a place where I could be nurtured and where I flourished, you know. So anything that can help, what do I think about it from a legal standpoint? If it works for you, go with it. Now, I mean, that's my thoughts. If it's illegal, if it's lawful and you can do it and it helps, go with it. That's my thoughts on that. But I don't know if there's a legal issue in there. You know, I know that it would defund a lot of the schools, but hell, if you can pick and choose the school you go to, great, wonderful. I don't see why. It's America. We're paying our tax dollars, and we should be able to do what we want to do. Right. But I get how that would. I don't want to get into that too much because you know that I'm gonna stay in my lane. That way I don't get hit. You know what I'm talking about? That's how I'm trying to get hit.
You don't get hit.
Yeah. Now give me some law questions, baby. Give me some law questions or some questions. I'm here for that. Go ahead.
Jamont came back in. He said, thank you for your answer. I agree in regards to the currently incarcerated and those convicted of violent crimes. Yet, in regard to the 13th Amendment, yes, is made U.S. citizens after slavery. But okay, so it didn't look like he completed it in there. I'm not sure what that meant. Let me see if there are any other questions in there before we lose you. Shout out to Norin Blithers for the support. Appreciate that. Okay, so I don't see any more in here right there. Now let me just emphasize that these are the kinds of thoughts that I want from you guys about, you know, what it is you want to see. Again, I'm not saying that this list is going to go to Congress tomorrow. What we're doing at this juncture is really just putting down the ideas. We haven't refined them. We haven't, you know, figured out how to apply them, which kinds of political representatives we might be able to pressure to engage them. At this point, we're just polling and getting the ideas written down because I'm sad to say, it's 2022, Attorney Spurling. Yeah. I've never seen anything like this. And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. I'm saying it makes no goddamn sense that I'm almost 50 years old and I've never seen a list of political ideas or proposals that are that center black men's interests. What about you?
No, I've yet to see it either. I mean, other than yours, I mean, that's why I'm so excited about participating in it. And I also am working on an amendment, a proposed amendment for the reparations movement, something that's actually practical. I actually spoke to Judge Joe Brown. He thought it was a good idea. We did that live. And Gerald Horn, Dr. Horn thought it was a good idea. And that is basically to use all this started from a conversation you and I had with BGS maybe a year or so ago about the breeding farms, where we learned that there was a law in place that outlawed slavery, you know, the importation of slavery. And it also inserted a penalty in that, a penalty that's often overlooked. So that same anti-slavery act that was, what was it, 18 or 17, whatever, I forget the date now, 1806, maybe it was, it also says there's a penalty if you get caught bringing people into this country.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to those people who are brought into this country after 1806 or 1808, 1807, and they can trace their lineage back to places like Ghana, Nigeria, and these other places when slavery was illegal? Well, if that's the case, then those people who inherited, those people have a lawsuit. So all you need to do is amend the statute of limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Then all you need to do is go against the companies, the corporations, the insurance companies who participated. They're still around, or their progeny is.
Right.
So there's a lot of work, but no, I've never seen anything like this, and it'll be there for decades to come. So long after you and I are to the point where we don't give a crap no more, like, yeah, I mean, we did that, missing teeth. You know what I'm talking about? You know, they'll be like, yeah, I remember this. It'll be there. And I think it's a wonderful thing, and it's great having these brilliant minds like yourself and so many others here. It's a blessing to have you here, Doc. You know,
we got another question. You got a second for that?
Yes, sir. Yes, Doc.
Okay. What does Dennis Spurling Esquire think about suing the state for paternity fraud if they fail to prove paternity at childbirth?
Okay, so you want to sue the state for paternity fraud. When you say they, are you referring to the state? Or are you referring to the child's mother? Because if you're suing the state, I want you to just let's you know, and that's why you got to be very precise with your words. Okay. You're saying you have a cause of action against, let's say, the state of Illinois because of paternity fraud. Did the state commit paternity fraud, or did that child's mother commit paternity fraud?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like the question. Should you be allowed to sue the child's mother for paternity fraud? I would say yes, because it's fraud. Should you be allowed to sue the state for paternity fraud? How did the state commit paternity fraud? What information did they give you that was incorrect intentionally? You know, intentionally misleading. They would have gotten their information from the source, the mother. So that's actually the person who committed fraud. So suing the state for paternity fraud, no. Because at the end of the day, if you sue the state, the taxpayers have to pay that. And I don't want taxpayers having to pay that. Between you and your baby mama, if somebody got to pay for paternity fraud, it need to be one of y'all, not us. I had nothing to do with it. We already pay enough money in taxes. But yeah.
Now, what about specific cases where you have, because we saw this in the news, and I want to say it was in Texas a couple years ago. You had a brother who was paying child support. He found out the child wasn't his. He had a DNA test done, went back to family court. Family court says, nope, your name's on the birth certificate. You got to keep paying. Is there any, is there anything on the books as far as men in situations like that where they can push the reality that they're not the father? Is there anything that can be done about having signed the birth certificate already?
Often in those cases, they give you a certain time limit to file a petition or a motion or really a petition to abate paternity, or a petition to challenge paternity. And that time limit is probably like 2 years from the date that, the child is born. So you have up until they're 2 years old, or 2 years from the date that some sort of judgment is issued against you. Okay. So in a situation where, and I know there was a case in Detroit where we knew factually that this child does not belong to the man. But what you guys, I want y'all to understand something. It's not what the truth is. It's what you can prove in court. The truth is secondary to the evidence that's presented in court. There's a lot of people who committed a lot of crimes and they got away with them because they weren't able to be proved in court. You see, so that's why we have the evidentiary rules. That's why we have these rules of procedure. Everybody could be a lawyer if they understood the rules of procedure, the evidentiary rules, the history behind the rules, the Constitution, how the case law works. Yeah, you can read a book, but you don't understand the tracks by which you go from point A to point B in the law. So, what he's basically saying, this baby is not his. Well, were you served with the lawsuit? Did you have due process, an opportunity to be heard? Did you answer it, or did you brush it off? If you didn't answer it and you brushed it off and you waited till the statute of limitations run, that's your butt. Now you're asking for a second chance. What about, 5 or 6 years later, after I've been paying child support, I got these $50,000 in arrears. Can I then go back? Well, you got to look to see what the law says. Yeah, it sounds unfair, but remember, the government has no incentive in taking you off of child support.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because the government does not want to pay for that baby. Because
Right.
who does the government represent? It represents taxpayers. And Dennis Spurling does not want to pay for your little bastard baby. Okay, let me say that again. I know
He just took that whole thing like
I'm trying, you know, it's getting late. You know, Uncle D, it's getting late to start talking like this. But the truth is, we don't want to pay for your child. And we are the state. What all is going to happen is if you start letting all these guys off child support, taxpayers, that burden is going to be shifted to other men because the vast majority of taxes are paid by men men anyway. You know, and I say that in a humorous way, but that's what's going to happen. Either you as an individual man are going to pay for it, or us as men are going to end up paying for it. So the best thing I can tell you guys is when you find out some woman says she's pregnant, you file suit immediately. Okay, you file a petition to establish paternity, and you serve her, and you wait till that baby is done. You have that test. You determine if it's yours. If it's yours, deal with it. If it's not, you done with it. Don't run from the legal system. It's a lot easier to fix a problem before it goes bad than it is to wait till there's a real problem and you got $50,000 in arrearages and it's been 7 to 8 years. Jump on it as soon as you hear about it. That's what I'm telling you guys. That's my thought on it.
What would you say to men who are in a situation where they're worried about getting a DNA test? They're worried she's going to get upset. You know, she just had the baby and she might get upset with him if he wants to do it. And so you have some men that don't bother because they don't want to offend the women.
They don't want to get upset.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You don't want to get this woman upset. All right, you don't want to get her upset, so you don't ask her about, and I guess by getting her upset, that might upset her and the baby. If it ain't your goddamn baby, why do you care if she's upset or not? That's the first goddamn thing. And then she lied to you. She don't know she's goddamn freak out there having sex with everybody. Why do you even care? Let's keep it 100. Why do you even care? And who's going to be upset in 18 years when you find out when that baby is 19 years old that you've been paying for somebody else's bastard baby and he's walking the child? Ooh. I like to take my real daddy. You know, if it wasn't for my real daddy, I wouldn't be able to run this fast or jump this high. Or this girl turned 25, 26 years old. And now you the fake daddy. You the fake daddy, and the real daddy is walking her down the aisle. You know what I'm saying? That's gonna hurt your heart. So you worried about hurting her feelings. You not only you gonna hurt your feelings and your wallet, because what you're doing is you're taking money and resources for your own little ugly ass kids that you could have been having, and you spend it on somebody else's little kids. That's the problem. So what you gonna do? You worried about hurt feelings and you're robbing from yourself, you robbing your ancestors, because your ancestors looking like, son, we wish we could come from the goddamn ancestral plane and tell you that ugly ass baby don't look nothing like us. That belongs to somebody else. That belongs to their plane over there. Okay, so you're robbing your lineage, your little funky hurt feelings. You're robbing your lineage. You're stealing from your children. You're stealing from yourself. You're setting yourself up for a fall, as opposed to what? Hurting this little broad's feeling over here in the goddamn hospital. Come on, man. Let her go get her money from her real baby daddy. Let her get Pookie right now. As soon as he get out of jail, he gets served with them papers. You get him a job working at the plant, and they can have their own little happy family somewhere. You know what I'm talking? Well, I'm sorry. Did I say something? My bad. Off on a tangent. You done got me real. You know I can only go so long without I was trying to hold my frame.
This is why I put the name on the screen. If you've been living under a rock and you haven't checked out, Dennis Spurling's channel, go check it out. I wanted you to see the proper spelling of his name. Yeah. You go check out the YouTube channel. You about to start up in a couple of minutes. What's the next episode about?
We're gonna talk. I think we're gonna talk about my man Charleston White. I like Charleston White. I do. And so I want to kind of talk about, I've actually appeared on his broadcast before, but I want to talk about him and what he represents. To me, Kevin Samuels was the voice that spoke to women and told women the things that they didn't want to hear. Kevin, this young man, Charleston White, is the voice of Black America that speaks to the thugs and the criminals in the entertainment business who've been promoting this lifestyle for the past 30 or 40 years. he speaks to them he makes them uncomfortable. Just like Kevin Samuels made the lovely ladies uncomfortable, this dude makes the fake gangsters and wannabe thugs uncomfortable, and I enjoy it, you know. And he's actually running, and this is breaking news. My understanding, he's running for city council in up in the Dallas area, Fort Worth. So I'm kind of talk. I think I'm gonna hit on that a little bit, man. But
all right.
Nah, man, you know, yeah, I'm enjoying myself, man. I get to come on this show. I hope you don't get no strikes. All this stuff, man. Oh man. Yeah.
Well, hey, look, I want y'all to support at least 2 shows going on today, because like I said, we ain't gonna be here long. Attorney Spurling is heading to his show. Support that. If you haven't had a chance, Green Gorilla had a show on, and unfortunately, I know I cut part of it starting this, but you know, you got to work with people's schedules, so I apologize, Green Gorilla. But check out the show he just did today. I'm not sure if it's over, but it was on when I started. I do apologize for that. But check the Green Gorilla channel here on YouTube. Check out both shows. Support both. You know, subscribe to both. Make sure you're signed up for Attorney Spurling, because something tells me this next year is going to be a wild ride.
Don't be out there taking care of them ugly ass kids that ain't yours, man. Don't do that. Them ugly kids belong to somebody else. Send them back to their people. My thoughts. Anyway, I'm sorry. My bad, bro. My bad.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming.
All right, Doc, man.
I'm gonna wait on the reparations piece. So send that to me when you can.
I'm gonna send that to you. We're gonna be serious again for the first hour, and then that last about 15 minutes, I'm gonna just cut loose. I can only hold frame so long, okay, baby. I tried my best. I ain't cussed though. I ain't cussed.
All right,
man. I'm out, Doc.
I appreciate you, man. Shout out to Dennis Spurling for coming through. Appreciate it. We still getting people sending it in. Shocks 112 says 80 style telethon. Usually that brother was trying to tell me on the TV channel I should do an 80 style telethon on there. I got to get some local acts with some kids doing things in the background, and But shout out to Brother Shocks. Hope you well, man. But that was entertaining. If you missed it, go back to the beginning, check it out. Attorney Spurling made some contributions to the black male political agenda. If you're not familiar, I put the link in the chat a couple of different times. This is it here. You can kind of see it break down there. Again, it doesn't have to remain 14 points. We're adding to it. I don't care if it's 300 points for right now. Add what is relevant to improving the quality of life for black men and boys, and go from there. And you can see I put a streamlined list of the 14 points there. And then you can go into the detailed list from there. And you can see how many subpoints each one has. Family court reform has now 13 subpoints, followed by law enforcement, which now has 10 subpoints. So keep adding to it. Keep sending it in. You can go down to the on the same page. You can add to the comments. You can add your ideas there. You can email them to me. I would suggest more so put in the comment section on the screen, and we'll go through it from there. But that's the list. So you can see it was last updated October 16th. It's been around since September 24th, 2020. So we started this during the middle of the pandemic. The conversations we were having right here on the Onyx Report, and we're continuing to grow the list, because as far as I know, this is the first list where black men are actually talking about what they themselves need or want, which would improve their quality of life. Because at the end of the day, nobody else is. Even when you talk about what is generically black, political talking points, they rarely benefit black males specifically. A good example of that is Stacey Abrams' Black Men's Agenda. Generic talking points that technically would benefit a lot of people, but not even any earmarks that put black men at the front of the line on the talking points that are supposed to benefit black men on Stacey Abrams' agenda. Now, obviously, that's just for the state of Georgia, but again, that's the beginning point. So that's where we are. We're trying to have these conversations so we can get these ideas written down, put on paper, so we can actually examine them and look at their applicability. Right. So at the end of the day, I appreciate y'all coming through. Like I said, I wasn't gonna hold you long. Go check out Dennis Spurling. Go check out Green Gorilla. Support both channels. Shout out to BGS more in the chat. Hope you guys are well. Y'all have a good one. Peace.